Hey everybody, this is Jemmy from Curve the Cube, put on by Flintstone Media. Curve the Cube is your South Florida arts, entertainment, and media podcast. And this is the 12th episode of the podcast. And on today's show, we feature Dan, whose last name can be spelled one of two ways, Corcoran or Cochran, depending on where you are. He is a reporter for The List, a really fantastic show on WPTV. It's basically your trending topics and news show. It's not your normal news show. It adds on a little bit of entertainment and humor and just some really funny, interesting stories, and everything has a really cool angle. I encourage everybody to watch it. It airs nightly on WPTV at 7 p.m. Right after NBC Nightly News. It's a really awesome show. And Dan is a great reporter on the show. He does the Around South Florida segments, and he does an awesome job. Today, actually, I caught him after he had been at the fair all day, cooking up some fried Oreos and hanging out with the carnival folks. So I'm sure that episode's going to be awesome to watch his stories. I always check out his stories. They're really cool. Anyways, I hope you enjoy this episode. He talks about how he got into the news and why he wanted to be a reporter and what he went to school for and how he got all the opportunities he's gotten and how he's been making his way up the ranks in the South Florida news industry and news industry as a whole, because he's kind of been all over the country. So he's doing an awesome job. So really take the time to pull out those awesome nuggets from this episode, because he gives us some good ones. So enjoy this 12th episode of Curve the Cube. Bye-bye. Curve the Cube will now initiate. How's your day going so far?
The day is great. I actually just spent the past several hours at the South Florida Fair.
Ooh. What were you doing there?
Actually,
Stories?
A little bit of everything.
Yeah.
We work for the show called The List, and what we were doing there was I was there for work, and essentially instead of just doing the normal story about an event or something, we try to do something a little different.
Different spin.
With a little twist up.
Love it.
So what we want to do is actually do some of the jobs that for the lack of a better term, the carnies do.
Oh, that's such a neat idea.
So we did. And
what did you do?
Today, I deep fried and tried my first ever deep fried Oreo.
Oh, I'm so jealous. I meant to grab one the other day and I forgot.
I've never had one before.
What'd you think?
It was awesome.
Really?
And I was so proud of myself that I didn't mess it up and that it was just delicious. It was perfect.
Is that the first time you've had a deep fried Oreo?
I've never, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love deep fried anything, dirt, but I have never done like the carnival deep fried Twinkies or any of that stuff. So
neither.
I figured, why not? If I'm making one, I might as well eat it.
Heck yeah.
So I did, and it was great. It was fantastic.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I'm dying to try that and just like everything else that they have to eat at the fair.
Yeah, I filled up today.
Fair food can be so good. Did you ride any of the rides?
Didn't do the rides today. We were actually there right when they opened, so it wasn't there. But we did do a couple of other jobs. I went into I guess you'd call it the poultry tent, and I'm not like a city person, but I'm definitely not a farm person. And so I'm in there. There was chickens and roosters and hens and whatever other poultry exists, and we got to hold some of the little baby chicks and got to see them hatching. I also held like a big old turkey.
You held a turkey?
Huge. It was like a giant.
Are you
turkey.
kidding me?
Yeah. This will all be on TV too.
Was it docile or was it like?
It was so kind. It was like holding a cat.
Aww.
A friendly cat.
Yeah, because cats can be vicious.
But this is a nice bird. And the other last job we did 3 jobs today. So we ate the fried Oreo and made the fried Oreo. We held the chicken and other small poultry birds that we were there. And then we also finally got not only, those caricature drawings that they do.
Yeah.
Well, we had the nice artist do one of me, which came out really good.
Yeah.
And then I kind of flipped it, and then I started doing the drawings of him. And then
Can you draw?
Not really, but I'm willing to try anything. I am. And so I just did, and it came out not so bad. I think a lot of the times no one really looks normal in those drawings anyway.
Right. Oh, totally.
So you're given a little leeway there.
Yeah.
So I took leeway and did my best with this guy's drawing, and he was a nice guy and said I did a nice job and put forth a great effort. I don't think it would be worth a dime.
Well,
but
here's the question. Did he give it back to you to carry home, or did he put it up on display?
I told him it was his to keep.
Oh, okay.
Whether he keeps it or puts it on display is another thing. Because I don't think I was doing his business much help by drawing that and having everyone's passing by and seeing, oh, look at how awful that artist is. But no, I was just trying it out. Yeah.
Who did you go down there with today?
We work as a 3-member team here at The List and in the South Florida Bureau. It's actually a nationally syndicated show. It airs in 13 different markets, TV markets across the country. But we have a little staff here that makes the show have a local feel and actually talk to local people and businesses and go to local events. So it's 3 of us here. It's myself. I'm the on-air personality, and I also write a lot of the stuff. We have a producer here. His name is Andy, and he's great. He works really hard. He comes from a news background, so he knows how to get things done quickly and set stuff up.
I adore him. He's awesome.
He's great.
Yeah.
And then a photographer, Amanda, who actually I worked with in the news business as well, she completes the team as well. So it's 3 of us, all with different backgrounds, different areas of expertise that we kind of come together and produce the segment that's called Around South Florida. Airs every night during The List at about 7:15, 7:20. So it gives the show a feel that this is a show that's, talking about my community.
Yeah.
I know these places.
Yeah.
I want to visit these places, and I can visit these places.
Yeah.
We try not to make it out of reach or too expensive or do things that no one can afford to do or no one can actually do themselves.
Right.
And I think that's what people like about the show.
Yeah, no, I love the show. I love the angle it takes of it gives you some national stuff, but then it just sprinkles in the local things, and it's very seamless.
No one really knows.
Yeah.
It's kind of our little secret, but I don't think it's a bad thing that there are people across the country working to put this show together.
Which is so neat. How did they end up being in? Because I know you've been in WPTV since before The List came down here. So how did you get involved? How did they get on board with WPTV?
Well, the show is actually started by the company that owns WPTV.
Is it Scripps?
Scripps, the EW Scripps company, decided instead of buying all these syndicated programs that you'll see on at 7 o'clock or 7:30 and all the channels, they decided instead of buying these, let's create them. We're all TV people. We make news all the time.
Right.
Let's see if we can create shows that would fit that time period and that time slot. And so far, they've created, I think, 3 or 4 different shows, and they're all kind of sprinkled in around the 24-hour clock.
Is the Now part of that recipe?
The
or
Now
is that separate?
part of it. The Now is kind of different because that's kind of a hybrid of news and entertainment and kind of what's happening now.
Right.
But The List is more focused on taking the time to do incredible editing, funny writing, and really
some of the pop culture references that would just be randomly shot on the screen just make me die laughing.
And that's the thing. We don't want. I think a lot of times when you watch a normal newscast or any show or even an entertainment show, you kind of know how the formula goes. Our job, and this is part of our mantra, is to always give something the List twist. I know that sounds cheesy, but that is what we try to do. There are things happening in our community, and we can tell you about them, or we can tell you about them with like a twist.
Right.
And that's what we try to do. So we could have just gone to the fair and interviewed a carny about what they did, but I want to get in there and do it myself, try these things for the first time on camera. And if I mess it up, you're all going to see me mess it up too.
Well, dang it, next time I do a podcast with you, I need to sit in the studio and be like, I don't know, doing the weather or something.
Yes, we do everything here.
Getting my hands dirty.
Why not? Why not? We welcome that. We welcome cameo appearances any day.
It seems like a really, really fun show to be a part of. What has been, is there one story that's really stood out that's just, you're like, I can't believe I just did that?
Well, I come from a news background. I was like a hard news reporter for my entire career. Since I got out of college, all I wanted to do was be on those crime scenes, and that sounds morbid, on the crime scenes, on the serious story of the day.
I get it.
And tell people what's going on in their community.
Yeah.
And that was an amazing thing, and it just taught me everything I know about doing what I'm doing today. But to transition from such a serious thing where you're covering usually the worst thing that's happening in your community every day.
Right.
If you're the top story, that means you're talking about the worst thing that happened that day, a lot of times. And after years and years and years and years of doing that and standing next to crime scene tape or, God forbid, something awful.
Right.
You don't even realize it. Yeah, you don't realize it's weighing on you.
Oh, yeah.
And so this job, I knew the list existed, and I'm not the first reporter that's done the list here, but when it opened up, I said, okay, I like my job here, doing the news, but this is something totally different, which would use a different part of my brain. I get to be fun. I'm not going to be doing the worst story of the day. I'm going to be doing the best.
Right.
And so I'm like, I jumped at it and I said, if it's going to happen, it's meant to be. Let's just try it. And when I got the job and I had to apply for it and had to, beat out some other candidates.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I did, because
when did that start for you?
I made the transition from news to the list, I believe in early August. It's been 6 months.
Was that when Ashley went to Denver? Is that when that?
Ashley Porter, the previous local reporter.
Yeah.
She got moved to, or opted to move to the Denver bureau of the list. So she's doing what she did here, but in the Rockies now.
Yeah.
And so this opened up, and I had heard good things about it, and even spoke to Ashley about it, and she kind of said, listen, this is a good gig.
Yeah.
And so far it has been. And I'm not like, it's so weird because this is, after what I've done for all these years, it doesn't really fit with what I worked so hard for, and I was always trying to do these serious stories. But now I'm like finding myself interviewing celebrities and really liking it.
Yeah.
And that's a challenge in itself, just to do that, because every celebrity is going to have their own
way to
personality. And some of them will just kind of take the reins and say what they're going to say. Others need to be asked certain questions. And also there's that like fame factor. You're interviewing someone that's
of course
famous and knows how to run their careers in this business. So there's that kind of like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And that is cool in a new way. I'm not interviewing such a the widow of a murder victim.
Right.
Now I'm interviewing a guy that has an awesome talk show.
Right.
Like, it's great. So it's different challenge, but wow, when I go home at the end of the day, I don't have that whole thing kind of weighing on me.
Absolutely. It's actually kind of something I've noticed in news over the last, 20 years maybe. Like it seemed like the news was always so depressing. There was nothing good on the news, and that's what kind of became a mantra. There's nothing good on the news. And then slowly I noticed companies has tried to like sprinkle in little things, like NBC Nightly News has the like making a difference segment, and there's things like that, and you see that. And I noticed WPTV has started putting in like a few more of the positive stories around the community. And then so when the list came on, and I was like, that's the next step. And that's the next phase of this, is the bringing on more of the entertainment, but keeping it still locally news based. It's a really awesome concept.
And we have some changes going on behind the scenes too. I'm probably not supposed to talk about it, but you're going to see it on TV anyway. That like we're going to try and not do such fluffy stuff on the list. I'm not saying everything we do is fluffy, but sometimes it can appear that way to some people. So I think that in the weeks and the months ahead, you'll see the show kind of entertain you in a different way too. That you're going to feel something from our stories, which is great for me, because as a news reporter, we always try to find feeling, and give that to the viewer, make the viewer feel something, even on a crime-ridden story.
Right.
We always had to try to find that character or that nugget of information that was going to make people say, oh my gosh. Now we're starting to not turn it into a news program, but just think a little deeper and make people feel something, instead of just getting, laughing at it, but also feeling something too.
Digging a little deeper into it.
And that's not easy to do from my perspective, but when you do it and you make someone feel something, then you know that you did it right. And it's
interesting.
It's very weird. I've done many news stories of all different kinds over the years, but when people tell you what they remember from what you've done, it's never the crime story.
Right. What do you think tends to be what people remember?
I think that a lot of people, I've done some really good stories with veterans. I've taken the honor flight to Washington, D.C. with the veterans from here in South Florida, which was an amazing journey.
I imagine.
So it's a very quick trip, only about 24 hours, not even, and you're on the plane with these guys, that are in their 90s and late 80s, some of them, and they're old and they have been through a lot, and they're part of the greatest generation. And so I went with myself and a photographer, great photographer, and he and I actually, within that one day of travel, cranked out so many stories.
I imagine.
And every single guy,
because every guy is at least several stories in them.
They all have stories.
Yeah.
They're all tear jerkers too.
Yeah.
And some of these guys had never seen each other never met each other before, but they all have such a common thread,
of course,
through their lives. So those stories, when you're telling stories of people who, on the last leg of their life are making a journey together with something they did with all these same group of guys decades and decades ago, and seeing the monuments that were built in their honor, some of them for the first time. Oh my God, the stories write themselves, and you're like, I hope I got that on camera. Did he say that? Was the audio working?
Right.
Because you want people to feel what you're feeling in that moment. And that's so hard to convey to people, but those are the kind of stories that I love to do. And I think people still stop me and say, oh, you went on the honor flight. Yeah, I did. That was like 2 years ago. And you remember those stories.
Wow.
So there are certain stories that touch people. And I think the reason those stories do is because you look at those guys, look at those veterans and say, oh, I know someone like that. That was my dad. That was my grandpa. That was my grandpa. And I think if you can make people feel something and think, oh, God, identify with it, that is the challenge and also the goal, I think.
You know what I bet? We were talking about the carnival or the fair earlier, and you were saying, you don't go down there just to talk to carnies, you actually interact with everybody.
Yeah.
But I bet some of those carnies have some pretty incredible stories. If you really dig into the depth of their lives.
I don't know if the fair would let me do it, but I would love to spend a couple hours out in the RV village.
Oh God, yes.
Maybe I wouldn't, but I want to know what goes on.
I'll go with you.
You know that when the carnival shuts down at 11 o'clock
that's
midnight,
when it really starts.
That's when the RV park lights up.
Oh yeah.
So I can imagine there's a few stories to be had out there in Carney World. But
probably every night.
I don't know that they would want to reveal it. No.
There's probably a Carney code.
Yeah, what happens in RV parks.
Right.
In RV parks.
Exactly.
Carney code. I like that.
Carney code.
Hashtag Carney code.
So, where did you grow up?
I grew up in a city called Haverhill, Massachusetts.
Okay.
It borders New Hampshire and the Massachusetts seacoast, up in New England. It's spelled the same way, Haverhill, as Haverhill.
Oh,
it's spelled
okay.
here. And my whole life living in Haverhill, I had to tell people, no, it's not Haverhill, it's Haverhill, even though it looks like Haverhill.
Yeah.
Here, I moved here and I saw there's a town of Haverhill, there's a Haverhill Road.
Yep.
And they had to tell me that it's not Haverhill, it's Haverhill. And I had to say that on the news one time, and I had to phonetically, put it in the teleprompter.
Did you get it right?
I got it right, because I knew that I'd get it wrong if I wasn't paying attention. But no, I'm from Haverhill, Massachusetts, a suburb of Boston, and that's where I grew up. My parents still live in the same house I grew up in.
Wow.
Most of my family still lives in New England. I have 4 siblings. I'm the 4th of 5. My brother lives in my hometown with his wife and 2 kids. My other sister lives in Connecticut with her husband and 4 daughters.
Wow.
My other sister works for New Balance Shoes up in Boston and lives just outside of Boston with her 2 kids and her husband. I live here. And my little sister, I say little sister, she's like 30, but my younger sister lives in Brooklyn with her boyfriend, and she is living the New York life.
Wow.
And so we've all kind of done different things. Not one of us has the same profession.
Right.
Not one of us has the same profession as our parents.
What do your parents do?
My mother was a public school math teacher, and my dad is a private practice attorney. He has like his own little office.
Yeah.
And he has been doing that forever, and I don't know why none of us followed in those footsteps. They're both very admirable careers to have. But no, I think that my parents said, whatever you want to do, just go and do it.
That's good, though.
It's a very weird mix of things that we're all doing.
Well, it's because you're all are different personalities, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And the hardest part of doing this job is that it can't really always happen where you want it to happen. Like, a lot of people grew up in their hometown or their home state, and they stay, and they get to stay and work. I did some work in New Hampshire at a TV station behind the scenes, but I knew that I wanted to do some on-camera work.
Right.
And the opportunities just weren't there for me. So I knew that I had to go wherever the opportunities were.
Right.
And so I haven't lived in New England where, all my family lives since, God, I think it's been like 8 or 9 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And so every time you go back to your hometown, and it's been 8 or 9 years, it feels just a little bit more like, is this still my hometown?
Right.
Like, I know that it is, but it has this feeling of...
It's a little less home.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of removal every time you go back.
You almost feel like a visitor.
Yeah.
Which
Especially if things change around you a little bit.
They have. I mean, my hometown, not much has changed, but some has changed. And also, being far away, the only thing that gets me the most is that I have so many nieces and nephews.
Oh, yeah.
And you turn around for 2 seconds and you go back and they are twice the size that they were.
Are you kidding me? I have my son's almost 3 and it's like every day.
I go back, someone has braces. I go back, someone has new teeth, someone has no teeth. It's like, I don't know who's who. But every time I go back, it feels good. And I always say, it gets harder to leave every time. Too.
Yeah.
I think someday, down the road, I don't know how long that road is, but down the road, I probably will
end up back there.
Which is crazy. Everyone's saying, why would you come back here? It's so cold. It's so freezing. The snow is awful.
Mm-hmm.
But, I think you miss it after a while, and you appreciate it more when you don't have it. Where are you from here?
Pretty much. I was born in North Carolina, but I've lived in South Florida since I was like 3. I think we lived in Miami first, and we lived in Boca when I was 5. And so when I moved to Boca, it was like, there was nothing there. It was West Boca off of 441. There was really nothing there. And so it kind of grew up around us. And, I remember when I went off after high school, when I went off to college, I went to college in New Orleans. And so anytime I would come back, even though it would just be a few months, it still felt like weird because I could see, that house got painted different. Or, what happened to the Eckerts that was on the corner? It's now a CVS? What?
Yeah, do you have any connections still up in Carolina?
Not really, no. Actually, none. I'm trying to think. I'm like, do I? No.
Do you ever set foot in that? Do you ever need to go back?
The last time I was there, I'm trying to remember if it was when I was looking at colleges in high school or somewhere around that. It's been a long time. Do you have family in there or connections?
I went to Charleston, South Carolina for Thanksgiving. My first time in the Carolinas.
Oh, really?
Passing through, and
nice.
It was nice. Yeah.
It's pretty. It's very
Gorgeous.
pretty. That whole area, the Carolinas and Virginias, that whole area there is so pretty.
I have been able, luckily, with this career, been able to kind of crisscross the United States map for jobs.
That's awesome.
And that's one of the only...
Wait, searching for jobs or doing reporting and stuff? Okay.
After I worked in New Hampshire for a while, I finally got a job. Those opportunities, you never know where they're going to be.
Right.
This opportunity to become a news anchor and a reporter came from the ABC television station in Eugene, Oregon.
Wow.
So I packed up my...
I know nothing about Oregon.
I didn't either. And I was going to Oregon to tell people what was going on in their communities as a news anchor. And I had no idea. I actually thought, my teachers, in elementary school, told me that state was called Oregon. It's not Oregon, by the way.
Wow.
It's Oregon.
Oregon.
I didn't learn that until I was on the phone with my new boss. And he set the record straight there. Just so you know, if
Did you
you're
have
going
to
to
put
come
that
here.
phonetically on the teleprompters too?
That was another tough one. Yeah. I got that one after a while. But wow, what a weird place. So I packed up the Ford Taurus in Haverhill, Massachusetts, and drove out to Eugene, Oregon, and was there for almost 4 years.
Wow.
And what a cool place.
Really?
It's like the 60s and the hippies. That's where they all went.
Oh my
That's where they all
gosh.
stayed. It also is a really beautiful place. Oregon is a secret that no one knows about. I've never lived in I'm living in a beautiful place right now. New England's beautiful, but just it's like nature. You feel like you're living in just rolling hills,
amazing
and
landscapes.
Landscapes. The ocean is there, mountain. It's really beautiful. If anyone has a chance to go there, if you're asked to go there, take advantage of it because it is a state that's gorgeous.
I'm not sure what state it takes place in, but that movie, Reese Witherspoon's new movie, Into the Wild, I think it's called.
I don't know.
Have you heard of it?
Is it up in the Pacific Northwest, do you think? Washington?
It's somewhere
Oregon?
out west. Yeah, I'm not really sure. But yeah,
seen
she
previews.
well, it's out, I think it's in the theaters now,
Oh.
and she just got, there's like all this Oscar nod type of talk for her for this role. And
Yes.
it's supposed to be one of those movies that you can't help but cry through. Even if you're the toughest dude, like you
And
can't
that's a
help
good
it.
thing?
I
Yeah,
guess
that's a
so.
good
I don't
thing.
know. But from the previews, wherever she is, the landscapes are just amazing. So when you're talking about Oregon, I'm thinking about.
Maybe that's what
I
it
don't
was.
know.
The Goonies was done in Oregon.
Oh, was it?
The Goonies, yes, that cult
What?
classic. I love that. Yeah.
Those liars.
Yeah. Where?
Weren't they supposed to be up in? I thought that movie was supposed to take place in Massachusetts or someplace.
Astoria, Oregon. As far as I know,
Maybe.
I think so. Then again,
Sure you're right.
I thought the state was called Oregon, so I don't really know. After I lived there for 4 years, I packed the car again and came down here to South Florida.
Oh
and I've
my
been here for
gosh.
4 years now too.
So let's rewind a little bit. How did you know that you were destined to be an anchor? What made you want to be a reporter?
I think that growing up in the Boston area, and in my house, my parents, part of the daily thing was that my dad, my mom would come home from work. We'd have practice or go out and play after school or whatever.
Yeah.
But even at an early age, whether this is a good thing or not, my parents watched the news every single day.
Okay.
The same channel, the same anchors, the same
Yeah.
every night. My dad would read the paper while he was watching the news. My mom would be finishing dinner, and everything would kind of that's how it was every
was
day.
their
at the
routine.
house. And we were there too.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if I was told to watch the news or if I decided to watch the news, but I started.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, these people know everything. How do they know all this stuff and act like it was no big deal to know all this?
Yeah.
How do they know? And I just got curious about how the whole industry worked and decided, oh, this is kind of interesting. And I volunteered at the local cable access station in my hometown.
Mm-hmm.
I learned how to do things with the teleprompter and the camera and the switcher and all the audio boards and everything.
Yeah.
And learned, wow, this is pretty cool. All these buttons, if you press them in a certain way, can make the program happen.
Yeah.
And so I was all into the production, and then also I was into the people on TV that were so professional
Mm-hmm.
and just made it look so easy. And I was like, wow, I don't think that's easy, but I think that they're making it look easy and easy to watch. And so I just started kind of doing my research. My little sister, younger sister, she was part of my games where I would set up the family video camera and we would do the news.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, and we would take newspaper articles and she would be my co-anchor whether she wanted to be or
Oh my
not.
gosh, that's so cute.
I gotta find these tapes.
What stories did you write about when
We
you were?
took stuff from the paper or from the newscasts on TV, and I think I would jot it down, and we hit record. I had a little news desk set up and everything.
Oh my gosh.
And I and my sister were
You
anchoring the news.
have to find this footage and show it to
We
me.
need to find it. Someday this might be worth something. You never know.
Absolutely. I think right now it's worth something. It's worth my interest.
It's worth a
that's for
laugh. But so we did that, and it was just fun. And so when I was, getting ready to apply for college and figure out what kind of field I wanted to go into, I just decided, okay, I'm going to go into communications and see. It was a broad major, but I could then have, kind of a pick of my field of study.
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of just kept on calling me back. And I was doing some radio stuff in college, newspaper stuff, but for the most part, I was really focused on this. And so while I was in college, someone clued me into the idea that internships, non-paid internships, unpaid internships were a good idea.
Yeah.
And so you pay, your college tuition, and you basically I took a semester off from classes and started doing full-time internships.
Oh, so you interned in the middle of your schooling?
I took my whole senior year, the fall semester I was not in my college town.
Wow.
I was off working full-time.
Wow, that's exciting though.
Mm-hmm.
That was at University of Massachusetts you went to?
University of Massachusetts, Amherst, yeah.
Wow.
And so that was a tiny little town in western Massachusetts where I went to school, a state school.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I ditched out on the classes for the internship, and the internship was at the Today Show. in New York City.
No way.
So for
Oh my gosh,
6
I'm
months,
jealous. Wait, stop. So when you were you were talking for a second before about how your parents were in this routine of watching the same show that's me in the mornings. I watch the Today Show every morning.
The Today Show?
Yes, I usually turn on the TV around 6:50 in the morning. And then that way I can catch the morning sprint.
Yes.
TD's
We love
morning
the morning
sprint, and then
sprint,
go
yeah.
right to the Today Show. That's my routine.
That's what a lot of people do,
That's
apparently.
so funny. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Go ahead. I'm
No.
really excited. You got
The
to.
Today
That's
Show
so cool.
was amazing. So my mother and I took the subway or the train down to New York City for my interview to see if I was
Yeah.
going to get this internship. I had no idea. And it was like a week before it was about to start. I was signed up for a full boatload of classes at UMass Amherst. If for some reason I didn't get this internship. So I went down to New York. I actually had 2 internship interviews that day. One at the Today Show, which went well.
Yeah.
And the other one was at, I think it was DreamWorks Record Company.
Oh
It was
my
a record
gosh.
company. And I said, whatever interview goes well, whatever internship I get, that's what my career is going to be. And so I think it
Wow.
worked out well because I could have been at DreamWorks Records or whatever
Yeah.
record company. It ended up at the Today Show. I got to see some crazy stuff there and work alongside. I mean, granted, I was an intern at the Today Show, so they don't let you're not anchoring the news or anything at the Today Show, but
Right.
you are a part of it, and they actually do want your help, and you can learn a lot just by watching that show come together.
Who were the anchors at the time? Obviously, it was Matt Lauer.
It was Matt Lauer, Katie Couric.
Was it Katie Couric?
Katie was in her prime there, Ann Curry, and Al Roker, who's
Yeah.
still there.
Yeah.
It was before, I think, Natalie Morales, definitely before Savannah,
Okay.
and all these other people that are on it now. There's a lot of people on it now.
Yeah.
And it's a lot longer now than it was when I was there. I think
Yeah,
it was
that's
just
what- yeah.
2 hours when I was there.
And then they added the third, and now it's the fourth with Hoda and oh my
Hoda
gosh.
and Kathy.
Kathy Lee, thank you.
Yeah. So, I mean, I watch it too now, but
Yeah.
it's so weird. It's not exactly the same as it was when I was there, but I'm so glad I got to be there. And to just like look out the window in Rockefeller Center,
Just
being
a
an
beach in
intern and
Rockefeller
like looking
Center.
out the window and seeing that ice skating rink and that tree
Oh, that's
close
so
to Christmas
nice.
was so cool. I'm like,
Oh my
man, this is the coolest thing. And then after that, I went back to Amherst, Mass. to finish up my college career, and I knew at that point, I'm just like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I need to get into this business.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I didn't get into the business after that, though. It took me another 3 years to actually get my first TV job.
Like you were looking that whole time? It took that long
I
to land?
got out
or-
of college and I said, okay, I'm going to go be a waiter and just figure out what I'm going to do. Let's not go broke and let's figure out what we're going to do. But I need something now. So I became a waiter, server at a restaurant, and liked it. And then actually dabbled in a career in restaurant management and was like, okay, I'm going to do this for a little bit. And then I realized, no, Dan, remember what you went to school for and what you worked so hard for.
Yeah.
And then went back to school at the Connecticut School of Broadcasting up in Massachusetts.
Okay.
Not the one down here. I know there is one here. I think the owner of the Connecticut School of Broadcasting lives in this area, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay.
So if you're out there,
Hello.
hello. But yeah, so I went and did that schooling for a little while, and that allowed me to do internships again. So here I went back for another unpaid internship at the ABC station in New Hampshire, which after a few weeks of doing it for free, they realized, okay, let's put this guy on the payroll. He's capable of more than just being
Wow.
an intern here. Started writing, producing, going out on the street, doing interviews, and realized, okay, this is good. And while I was there, I learned about how to make a resume reel, what a good news story consisted of, how local reporters do it every day, and that allowed me to get that job on the other United States coast. So every step of the way has taught me something, and even like I said now today at the list, I'm doing something different than I did every step of the way. And so what the next step will be, let me know if you know, because at this point I
Let me
can't
bring out my
even,
magic ball real quick.
at this point I couldn't have told you the last 8 steps were going to happen. So it's been kind of a crazy thing. But
Right.
at the end of it, I think, as weird as it sounds, I would love to be working back at that like station that I saw in my parents' living room
Aw,
back in the day.
come full circle
Full
with it.
circle.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Maybe you could. Do you know if those? Because I know, especially small towns. I mean, what am I talking about? Just everywhere, that sometimes anchors stay on for decades.
Forever.
Are they still there? Do you know? The ones,
The ones that I grew up with, no, not so much. Some of them are, but for the most part, they've since, retired or
Right.
doing other things.
Right.
But I mean,
that would be neat for.
it would be cool, and I think that there's something to be said for the people that are giving you the news, that they actually know the area.
Yeah.
I mean, I learn every area that I live in because it comes with the territory you
Right.
live in. But I think they're
Well, you can't be the newbie in town and say,
exactly
Haverhill.
Haverhill, Oregon. But someday I think that there's something to be said about the people that work in the place that they grew up.
Yeah.
I think that's an admirable thing.
Yeah.
So someday maybe.
Yeah.
It's out there. But who knows?
And be close to your family again.
Yeah, before, those nieces and nephews
No.
start having nieces and nephews. of
They
their
grow up
own.
really. It's incredible how fast they grow up.
Mhm.
So your major at University of Mass was communications. So thinking about the people who are the listeners to the podcast who might be thinking of going into this career, how much of what you do did you learn in school, and how much just necessitates that real on-the-job experience?
I know that I wouldn't be in this career without my diploma, my undergraduate degree in communications. There's no way I could do this.
Yeah.
I did too much living in those 4 years, for better or for worse, than to not get a whole lot out of it. And I don't think that, I'm not saying everyone needs to go to college, but in this profession, it's kind of the baseline thing.
Right.
Most everyone in this profession that's on camera, that's kind of providing content for the news, needs a degree. So I think that that's a very important thing. However, the question was, how much did you learn there?
Right.
And how much does it help in your career? The internships were a godsend. I don't know who told me that that's a good idea.
Yeah.
But if that person didn't tell me to do that,
Yeah.
who knows if I would have done it? Because I
Yeah.
was pretty happy, going to class in my sweatpants and then hanging out with my friends and doing. But those were the things that really decided. Okay, I'm going to be an adult now.
Right.
I'm going to do this. I'm going to move away from what's comfortable in my apartment with my 5 friends here, and I'm going to go do something on my own that's kind of setting the stage for my future. And so those are the things that not only taught me about the industry, but taught me about just being a grown-up.
Right.
And that's a huge part of any job,
Absolutely.
any profession.
Absolutely.
Especially one where you know that in the cards, you're probably going to have to move around.
Yeah.
In the cards, you're probably not going to get paid a lot, especially at the outset of your career. You're going to get paid like nothing, and the pay, I don't know if it's going up or down for the newbies in the business, but hopefully up. But I think that the most you learn is actually just doing it.
Yeah.
And in order to do it, you got to have at least something on that resume.
Well, it sounds like the lesson you learned with the internships, you learn to think outside the box, and if you have a passion for something, you need to kind of figure out how to go for it. And if an opportunity is there, grab it, and if it's not, find it. And if even if you don't necessarily know what that payout is going to be, because you looking at it like it's unpaid, why am I doing it?
Not a dime.
Clearly, there's a lot more under the surface, and I think a lot of people need to not poo-poo such opportunities that they really want to go for.
And now I'm hearing that internships, a lot of them, or a chunk of them anyway, are actually paid.
Are they? Yeah.
You get paid now.
Wow.
So why would you not do that?
Right.
I mean, and also no matter what, it's all about how much you're going to put into that 6-month or 3-month internship.
Right.
The more you put in and prove to the people around you that you're capable of doing this job or a portion of this job, who are you going to go apply? Those are the people, I think, that you're probably going to go back to as soon as you graduate and say, listen, I graduated now. Remember me? I was the intern that did such a good job. Hire me. But I think that is a huge thing. I think that you also have to decide what you're willing to give up in order to pursue that career.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew that to do it, I'm going to have to be away from mom and dad. I'm going to have to be away from my hometown.
Yeah.
And that happens, when you're 20 or 25 or however old I was, and you have to kind of sacrifice to do it. So depending on what you want and how fast you want it to happen, I think that this career is a unique one. Because you never know where it's going to take you. It's where the opportunities are. And once you get good at it, you can kind of define where those opportunities are.
What do you like the most? Do you like between, let's see, I'm trying to think of what some of the things that encompass what you do. Writing stories, producing them, being an anchor, you've done that. What elements of what you've done has been like your favorite thing that you've done?
I like the interviewing portion of it is where I'm doing most of my work, actually. Because this, like I'm speaking with you right now, and it's flipped my whole thing upside down because I'm usually the guy that asks you the question.
Right.
And then I formulate.
Feel free to pop one in every once in a while. It makes you more comfortable.
I will. Just So basically, as I'm asking questions and interviewing with someone and really trying to like feel who they are and figure out their story, I'm writing in the back of my head. So, I hear she just said something. That was the best thing that she said all interview. Like,
that's
wow, that just hit me. That just hit me in the heart. So that's what I'm going to use as the centerpiece for my story, and I'll build it around that.
Is that how you start to craft a story? As you look for that?
It all comes from whoever I am speaking to. They're the ones that decide what the story is going to be. Whether they don't know this, but they are the ones that decide. So if I'm having a conversation, just hypothetically, with a cancer patient that is feeling better or going to his or her teen's graduation from high school, and I'm having that conversation with them, and it's an emotional conversation. And the moment that they start crying and I kind of can join in with them, I know that that's the nerve. That's the tough spot. That's the spot that the story needs to be built around. So, hypothetically, if this person started bawling when they say, after I see my son do this, then I'm good. Yeah. Or however it hypothetically would play out. Then, you build it around that moment of, going to the graduation. I say, okay, then I'm going to be, for part of this big story, I'm going to go to that graduation and I'm going to have the camera on you while you're watching your son get his diploma. And that soundbite from the interview that we had paired with that image of mom or dad watching the kid go get his diploma. I mean, that's it. There it is. That's hypothetical. I just made that up. But there is every story presents itself in that way, and that's how you kind of do it. And that's the one thing I miss with regular, everyday news reporting is that I had to look for that. And what we do in the list is so fast sometimes we don't always get to that point. But I'm
do you think that's what that change is going to bring back?
That's going to bring that back, that tough spot, that sweet spot that makes people care.
Is that the sensitivity of finding that sweet spot, you call it, is that something that you've had to hone, or is that natural? Where does that come from?
I think at the beginning I was scared to feel anything because I thought that was compromising my objectivity? Yes. And just how I was going to tell the story. If I'm a blubbering mess when you're telling me about your situation, then that's not good for the story. Right. It's actually the opposite. I think that the more that you feel what your subject is going through, or at least understand what they're going through, that's only going to be a better story. And now I just kind of want to feel what they're feeling or understand what they're feeling, because if I don't understand it, how am I going to tell strangers in TV world about what this person's feeling?
What story has affected you the most, whether it's from the list or from other projects and places you've been involved in?
I worked on a story last year, or maybe a year and a half ago. It had to do with this woman that didn't speak a word of English, and she came over after marrying a man in this country and came here and lived in Wellington, and she claimed that she was being held captive in her own home for 3 years by her husband.
Wow.
That she had come from overseas. And
I think I remember this story.
it was a big story a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And I did the story about when it happened that she broke free. And that was an amazing thing. But 6 months later, this woman was receiving help from a woman's, a battered woman's shelter, for lack of a better term. And they had seen my story, that just day of story that I did, a strictly news story. I didn't talk to the victim, I didn't talk to anybody. And they had seen it and they liked what I did with it. So what they did is they reached out to me and said, we want you to tell her story. So I met with her in an undisclosed location outside of Palm Beach County where she was safe and away from this man.
Wow.
She did not speak English, so we had to bring in an Arabic translator.
Wow.
And she didn't want to show her face either for obvious reasons.
Right.
And those are hurdles that in a TV news story that kind of are tougher to tell to an English-speaking visual audience. She's not showing her face, and she doesn't speak English.
Right.
So we sat down, and a great photographer on that shoot as well, who set up the way we were sitting in almost like a triangle between me, this victim of this alleged captive situation, and the Arabic translator. Well, the Arabic translator already knew this woman's story, or so we thought. She was translating to me the questions, or she was translating everything to me, and back to this woman, my questions to her and the responses to me. So everything was going through this woman. So I'm asking the questions to the translator and getting the response back through the translator. And as our victim is telling the translator starts crying.
Oh my God.
And I know that whatever is about to be told to me in English is going to be good. And so the tears started coming out of the victim, out of the translator, and then finally to me, because what she was trying to say is that the victim has gone to Google to try to learn a sentence. And the only sentence that she was able to translate to English and physically say to a passerby when she finally broke out of this house was, "My husband beats me, take me to police station." It was broken English and it was barely there. And this woman did not, the translator didn't know that part of the story. No one had ever heard that part of the story. It was coming out in real time in this interview between all of us.
Right.
And she knew 3 English words or 5 English words, and it was that. And so we went into it thinking, oh God.
Because you're thinking the whole time she's been in America, she's had no contact with anybody probably.
She got on the computer and was able to say that. And so when we're doing this, the outset was this is going to be kind of a non-visual, non-emotional story because of all these hurdles that we have in TV news. It was the exact opposite, and it surprised me. And we ran out of videotape during that interview just because everything that she said was so compelling.
Of course. And
then another thing was we were all bawling our eyes out because at some point she was saying that she was wrapping they had children, this couple, wrapping her kids' presents, or they were actually empty cardboard boxes, wrapping them and taking pictures of them and sending them to her family overseas so that it wouldn't look like she disappointed them by coming here and getting herself into this situation.
Almost like her way of apologizing and relieving them of any
don't worry about me, everything's good here. Look, my children have presents, we're in America.
Oh, of course. Oh my God.
It was just such a sad, sad story. And
were the children okay?
The children are fine.
Yeah.
But now they're fine. But what that told me is that these people are putting so much trust in you that you're not going to mess up their story, that they're telling you their deepest, darkest things.
Right.
And sometimes you're like, wow, I shouldn't know this. But now that I do.
Person I just met 20 minutes ago, that's
camera
super
shy.
Intimate information.
And they're telling you their deepest, most awful things. So when you say, or when I'm talking about feeling what they're feeling, God, when you just kind of let them know that you're a safe person to talk to and that I'm going to do your story justice, they'll open up and then you can just kind of let the conversation fly. Wow. And so those are the moments where I'm like, okay, and you're sitting there I'm sitting there trying to compose myself during these interviews from not crying and not getting almost overwhelmed with the fact that, wow, we have a story here, a good story, and you're still trying to just push through the rest of the interview, but already the wheels are turning in my head. How can I put this together and tell this? So those are the moments that I work for.
Wow.
And realize, oh my God, I get paid for this. But and it's so weird because when at the outset of this career, I never thought that was even going to be a big emotional part of it. I thought it was going to be, I'm going to be on TV and I'm going to tell you what's happening in your community, and it's more than that.
Wow.
Like, there's more to it than that. And that's why another reason I wanted to come to the list is because sometimes we don't have time for that in a regular newscast.
Yeah.
And so I needed to diversify my portfolio a little bit just for future storytelling things. Because I don't think I'll stop doing this. Not anytime soon.
Did that make it onto your, what did you call it, your resume reel?
Yeah, it did. That story did make it onto my resume reel. And it's still, I believe, on the WPTV.com website. If you search Wellington Captive, you can see what's out there for it. It actually, this year, I was nominated for a Feature Reporting Emmy Award, my first ever.
Wow, congratulations!
It was an honor to be nominated, but it would have been better if I won. But that that story was part of it, and it was those are the things that make it worthwhile.
What's been your? Have you had an incredible celebrity encounter? Or?
Since this job, heck yeah, yes. Wendy Williams, Steve Harvey.
Oh wow.
Jason Alexander.
Wow. Where do you tend to? Is it events or?
We have a good relationship with the Improv downtown in West Palm Beach, and so the people that are here for those quick weekend stints there.
Yeah.
Margaret Cho. This week we're interviewing Jeffrey Ross. He's the comedian, the
roaster.
He's the roaster. He's gonna roast the heck out of me.
He's phenomenal. Oh yes. I can't wait to see it.
See, our producer Andy thinks that's going to be a wonderful idea.
I agree.
Have me roasted.
I agree.
I guess I can handle it, but yeah. So he's coming to town.
Did I mention earlier I love Andy? He has some amazing ideas.
Let's make Dan look silly again. So he's coming to town this week, and we have a good relationship with them where they need to promote their comedians really quickly, and we're willing to meet, talk to these people. Whereas the newscasts, what some of the radio stations do it.
Yeah.
As you know.
Right.
But yeah. So those comedians are a standby, but also, I think this Friday, this is top secret, but we're going to be interviewing a certain late night host that's here on Channel 5. Hint, it's not Jimmy Fallon. So who's that? Who's the other one that comes on there? Yeah. So,
are you serious?
Yeah. So we're going to do...
Because this will be, shoot, I was trying to think when I was I'm not putting this out till Monday.
That's okay. Oh. Then it won't be a secret. So it's Seth Meyers.
And by the time this airs, y'all can look it up online.
Actually, this is perfect because I think we're going to be doing the interview on Friday. And we're going to put together a couple of really nice pieces for both News Channel 5 at 6 p.m., I believe, and also The List at 7 p.m.
That is so exciting.
But these are things that I never thought I would get to do or care about doing.
Right.
It's really cool.
Right.
These are people that we see on TV every night making us laugh.
Right.
And to be able to look them in the eye and talk to them is such a weird thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But I know the celebrities, that's one thing that comes with this job at least. And some people aren't celebrity crazy, but I know that every celebrity has something to say, some kind of story to tell. So I'm happy to help them. I mean, they're fun. Yeah. They're celebrities because they're good at what they do.
And not for nothing, but they're living a life that not a whole lot of people get to live. So that in and of itself is interesting. What's their daily life like? So I'm fascinated about that stuff.
Yeah, and
I don't get into the gossipy stuff, but I'm fascinated by who they are.
Exactly, and where they came from.
Right.
And a lot of times it's not much.
Right.
So we love to do that stuff, but not necessarily say, promote their latest thing, even though that's what they
always want to do. Of course, right.
But we want to know something else. Yeah. We want the list twist on our conversation.
Right.
So that's what we we try to do.
Oh, I can't wait to see that. That's going to be really cool.
Me either. I hope I don't get too nervous.
It looks like the show like The List. I mean, in my head, I'm imagining it's just this massively hectic thing to put together. Because I mean, when you get a story, whether you've come up with it or it's come across your desk or whatever, how much time do you have from soup to nuts to create that story before needs to be ready to air?
Not much time.
Yeah.
Not much time, and it's like a weird blessing to have like 2 days to work on something, because usually it's not even a full day. I mean, we come into work in the morning and we literally grab our gear, the three of us, and sometimes two of us go out and shoot multiple stories in a day in the next several hours. And we're going from location from the Treasure Coast to Boca to the Western communities, like all over the place, wherever the stuff is happening. And then we have to come back to the station and start figuring out how we're going to put this on TV tonight. Because we have a lot more footage that we shoot every day than actually ends up in our small segment. So then we just start hashing it out, going for those soundbite nuggets that I was telling to you about. The best sound bites that we got all day, that's where we started. We listen to the tape and the interviews we've done, grab the best sound bites, start writing around those sound bites, piece it together, make it funny if we can, use the best video here, talk to the photographer about what she feels is the best video, talk to Andy and say, is this too much? Are we a little insulting here? And say, or is this okay, because we're The List? And usually it's okay because we're The List.
Right.
Yeah, it takes a long time, but we managed to cram it into just a few hours because that's all we have.
Wow.
It could take as long as we want to give it, but we don't have the luxury of time.
Right.
It was even more deadline pressure when I worked in the news business, but here it's a little bit less, which I love because that was something that was also tough to deal with on a daily basis. But that's the one thing that I like about this is that I have to finish my job every day. I don't know if I could ever do a typical job where I have a project that goes over like multiple months, where I have to come in and do 8 hours of it, then put it away and start up the next day. Every day when I come in, I start from scratch, and at the end of the day, it ends with a broadcast that hopefully goes smoothly, and then the next day we start
all over again.
Wipe the slate clean and start over the next day.
Wow.
And that's kind of a cool thing. I mean,
well, I got a tiny little window into it months ago. I actually was on the list.
You were on the list?
I was on the list.
This is before my time?
Yeah, I got interviewed by Ashley. And it was back when KBJ show was off the air, and there was a whole campaign going on, so I was interviewed about that with my friend Carla, and so I got to actually be on the list. It was pretty cool.
So do you think that we made a difference in any way?
You made a massive difference. Are you kidding me? You're like the campaign's
KBJ loves us
soldier.
Now. That's great.
On-air soldier. It was awesome to have you guys helping out.
I'm friends with all those guys on Facebook and on Twitter. I've met Virginia several times. I know her husband really well. But I've never been on their show, so hello. I'm not blatantly inviting myself, but if you feel like you want to have a guest on, it's kind of early, but...
maybe you guys could cross-interview the next slew of improv comedians or something.
They usually go from KBJ show to the List studio, so let's just all hang out as one family.
That's so funny. You should totally do it. You should totally do it.
I wonder how that would be, like, to do radio. It's so unscripted.
You dabbled in it a long time ago. It'd be kind of
I did, but there were scripts there if I needed them. I wasn't a pro or anything. It was college radio, but I don't know.
What, college radio wasn't a major production?
Working like overnights at the college radio, like on the weekend. No, that wasn't that.
Not really. Okay, no. So how's it now to work on such a prestigious show? I mean, honestly, The List is awesome. But what's it like to be, because you're an out-of-towner. Yeah. You've been here for a few years now, but you're an out-of-towner. And now here you are, and on your plate is the Around South Florida segment on The List. What's that like for you? You still, because there's so much involved with Florida, there's so many different layers to it. Like, what's that like to be just discovering it?
Florida has a crazy streak in it.
Just a little bit.
Like last week we did a full segment about how The Daily Show just totally, Jon Stewart just made fun of Florida for about 20 minutes.
Oh.
And then had Senator Marco Rubio on for a serious discussion, but also...
Oh, wait, yeah, no, actually, I saw that one because I tape Daily Show, so yeah, I totally saw that segment.
So funny. And so to stop and actually just take a moment and say, listen, we can take a joke and make fun of yourself. It's like the coolest part of this job.
Right.
So I think this job is unique because, we're allowed to actually take a stance on certain things, not like politically or anything like that. It's not like no one's telling us not to, but we're allowed to like give our opinion. If we think something's strange or stupid or funny or hilarious or a great deal, we can just say it.
Okay.
And so we do. Like, I think a new airline just started flying to Tampa or something. I don't remember what it was, but it was like a really good deal. So that is a steal. Like, it is. That's why we're doing the story, because it's a good deal.
Absolutely.
This guy was really funny. Like, he's crude, so here's a little bit of that. But he's really, and we'll just say what it is. And in the news business, you kind of have to cushion that with like a bunch of, this is one side of the story, here's the other side of the story. This is what they're saying, here's what they're saying. It's kind of like this volley back and forth. So at the end of the story, what does the viewer have besides just two people like yelling at each other?
Right.
Here we're just like a little more lax and just give you more, I think.
Your personalities are allowed to come out, I think, a bit more.
Which is really weird, because in news it was not allowed to do that. It was like buttoned up, suit and tie every day, and wearing jeans and sneakers like now to work, which I don't know if it's allowed, but it's more comfortable.
Apparently it is today, at least.
Fine. But yeah, so it's been a whirlwind to do this job, but I really feel lucky.
What has been the most surprising? What has surprised you the most about Florida?
It's just such a melting pot for me. There's old people here from New York, New Jersey, and Boston hanging out, like, with such a weird Miami, South Beach crowd, Palm Beach Island. Like, everyone is just all here. And we're all... I don't think there's a way to, like, identify one thing about Florida that's, like, kind of gives it a stamp. Like, you can't identify it as one thing. This is, like, the epitome of a melting pot.
Yeah.
I mean, I've come from, like, other places in the country that are... I thought were very like culturally diverse and very, just really different aspects of life coming together. This is like the epitome of that.
Yeah.
That is what I've learned, is that that is reflected in the stories that we do. Every day is like a mismatch of things, because that's kind of what we're living in right now. And every day is from somebody's promoting something else, and someone's talking about something else, and something else is making news. Like yesterday we were talking about how Tiger Woods' tooth got knocked out.
That's a good
and
one.
And our little twist was that these are other famous people that are really successful.
Right, with gap teeth.
With gap teeth.
Like Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, Eddie Murphy, Sandra Bernhardt, David Letterman. Like, don't worry, Tiger, it's fine.
It's fine.
Just leave it.
You look good.
But so,
it works for you.
You wouldn't see that on the 6 o'clock news on Channel 5.
You wouldn't at all.
But you will see it at 7 on the list.
That's awesome. Yeah. Tell people exactly where they can find the list and you and everything.
Yes, I'm on Twitter and Facebook at The List Dan, like @The List Dan, and the more followers.
I love how you spelled it out with your finger, because this is just a.
Hey, I'm a TV person. Yes, you can find me on social media there. Also, we have a website, thelisttv.com. That's everybody's stuff together from all around the country. All the content, the funny stuff you see on the air, plus a lot of local teams putting their stuff on there. So you can see what we're doing here. You can see what Ashley is still doing, or doing now in Denver, and what they're doing in San Diego and Phoenix and all these places. That website's cool. But as for watching the show, we're on every night at 7 right after NBC Nightly News, which is a great spot to be, because a lot of people tune in to NBC Nightly News and to our 6 o'clock news. And at first, I think it took a while for people to realize what the list was all about, especially when you're watching such a serious NBC Nightly News. But like you said earlier, they're doing fun stuff too, because they know there's an appetite for that.
Yeah.
So we are a little bit more fun. Still got some serious stuff in it. And we're right after that show, so if you're watching the nightly news, they can just keep on watching and get your news and then get your fun. That's like their slogan for the show is, there's the news and then there's the list. You know it.
Oh yeah. I've
That's our
watched a few
slogan.
times. So as we're kind of wrapping up, I have one random and weird question for you.
Yes.
Okay. So as I was looking up some information on you, I found out that there's actually another Dan Corcoran. How do you say it?
Corcoran.
Corcoran.
Well, in Boston, where I'm from, it's Cochran, and here in Florida, it's Corcoran.
Which do you prefer?
I like both.
Okay.
They're both. One is said correctly in the English language with the pronunciation of the letter R. In Boston, we don't pronounce the R, so it's Dan Corcoran.
All right. Well,
Go with
I'll
whatever you
honor your hometown.
Thank
and
you.
I'll say Cochran.
Thank you.
So there's another Dan Corcoran out there who is a nature survivalist.
Okay.
Yeah, he has like a website. He like lives in the woods and stuff. If you had to switch lives with him for a month, how would you survive in the wild?
In the wild, or just like
No,
just
in the wild.
I've
Very
done a
few supplies.
I've been on a camping trip or two in my life, so I don't know. It depends on where it is and what I have for apparel, but I think or gear. Sorry. Clearly, I'm not ready for living in the wild.
Been in South Florida too long, what I have for apparel.
What kind of survival apparel will I be wearing?
Yeah, try that at the local hunting store. See how
Size
they
11 and a half, please. Yeah. Maybe I wouldn't do so well. That's a good question. I think that I would do okay. I think that one of the biggest things in surviving in the wild is not to panic. And one thing I can do is in the midst of chaos or in a serious situation, even when things are going crazy, I think that I've learned in my life that the best way to get through something is to stop for a second and just figure out what is the next step I have to do. Okay, it's cold. Let's go and see what we can do to find the stuff to build a fire. Okay, we got the stuff for a fire. Let's start the fire. How are we going to do that? Let's figure it out now. If you're worried about, oh my God, I'm going to die of starvation in 5 days, then you're probably going to die of starvation in 5 days. And I think that the biggest thing that I have going for me is that I think that I can figure out and prioritize what I need to do next, what is most important. And I think that I use that in my career, I use that in my relationships. I'm trying to live a non-stressful life as best I can. This is a new thing for me. Like I have, in the past few months, I've taken up meditation. I have tried to do a better job of not upsetting other people and to understanding them.
Well, you've pissed me off this whole entire
I know,
podcast,
I can
so
tell.
There goes that.
But no, I mean, I feel like that's important. I feel like that's an important quality. I don't know how far it would get me in the wild, Dan Corcoran, number 2, but I know that I would be okay for at least a little while.
At least a little while.
I think so.
Yeah, it seems like I've noticed a common string of strength throughout your story, and it's that you look at what's right in front of you and how to solve it. You looked at the opportunities in front of you and deciding where you're going to go with your career, whether you're going to go the J Show type of way or the DreamWorks type of way. Where are you going to internship? Where are you going to get a job? It's whatever opportunities come in front of you. And then even when you're talking about putting a story together, you're already thinking about, how do I craft this and as it's going on? You definitely look like you look at what's ahead of you in that moment and solve it and then on to step 2. And that's kind of.
And these aren't things that I think are just flying at me and I'm making decisions on the spot. These are decisions that I'm able to make because of what's been done already.
Right.
And so and I can tell you this, that every person in the news business has a different path and how they get there. And it's based on the skills that you have, the drive that you have, and the luck that you have. Because a lot of it is just being in the right place at the right time and willing to take chances, make sacrifices. And I think in the end, it's been worth it for me.
Awesome.
And that, I think, is what we all want. And now, because I've kind of come to this place in my life where I'm 32 years old now. It's not that old, but it's getting up there for...
I'm older than you, so stop talking.
Okay, sorry. 32 years young. But I've come to a point where I finally feel like the adult things that I was kind of smattering in my life 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I think I'm almost an adult now.
There you go.
32.
Baby's all
Going
grown
on
up.
adulthood. But who knows?
That's awesome. Well,
But I did deep fry an Oreo today, so that was the highlight of my day.
Absolutely.
Aside from this, of course.
Oh,
Really?
Thank you
This
so
is
much.
nice. I gotta tell you, I never get to be on this side of it.
Aw,
And as you can tell, I have a lot to say.
I loved it. No, that's
Nobody knows
awesome.
that though, because I'm always asking the questions. So thank
Right.
you for asking me the questions.
Of course. No, thank you so much for participating and being a guest and everything. And I know I can see us doing this again sometime in the future because you're
Yeah, with
awesome.
a glass of wine, maybe.
Heck yeah, and some fried Oreos.
Fried Oreos. Absolutely. I'll make them.
Oh, would you mind signing off the podcast? And all you have to do is say, "This is Dan Corcoran."
I'm going to do it two ways, and
Okay.
you can say it however. But go ahead. What do I say?
With Curve the Cube.
Okay. Should I say the list too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, say this is Dan Corcoran. However you want to say it. Say it.
I want to say
Do your
Corcoran
thing.
because I'm
Do
Corcoran.
your thing.
All right. Hey everybody, this is Dan Corcoran from The List, airing 7 o'clock weeknights on News Channel 5. And you're on, I'm going to say it again. This is what happens in the news business. You mess up and you just do it again. Why did I add so much to it? You gave me the script and I strayed. Thank you. I have the script now. All right. 3, 2, 1. We're going to count you down. Hey everybody, this is Dan Corcoran from The List, and right now you're listening to Curve the Cube.
Yay!
I think I got it.
I think so. You feel satisfied?
I think so.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
High
My
five.
pleasure's all mine.
Woo!
Thank you. Bye everybody.
You have successfully curved the cube.